So I would like to welcome friends and family to this recording here, this conversation, as we continue the series Conversations with Gods and Goddesses, disguised as, of course, regular people as we are awakening to this truth and wisdom that we all carry. And really such an honor and a pleasure to be here speaking with my good friend Nicole, who is going to be sharing today as we speak about sexuality and what we are discovering in our suppression of our sexuality, and what it's like to liberate ourselves, to free ourselves. And so I just want to hand it over to Nicole, a chance to introduce yourself and where you're at and what you're inspired to be sharing with the world in these days.
Hello, my name is Nicole. I am living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. These days I'm being guided to work in the area of sex, sexuality, sensuality, and relationships. And it never looks one way. It's showing me how it wants to look, and it's been quite a wild ride of basically following the energy and letting all that unravel and just having all these crazy experiences and then having these awarenesses afterwards. I do work with clients, mainly men. We work on normalizing. We work on, what do we work on? So many different things. Touch, normalizing touch, men and women, getting men in touch with their sensuality is a fun one, and introducing that energy of play into all of it. So this is done through massage, it's done through conversations, it's done through bath times, it's wherever the energy takes me, whatever turns me on in that moment. If I have a man and a client that I want to work with, and I'm like, I really want to have a bath with that person, then we do it, and then we just follow the energy and we see where it goes. So that is an example of how I've been working with people lately. Kind of undefining. Okay, here it is. Undefining sex and relationships, which can look many different ways.
Beautiful. Okay, so maybe we'll come back to this a bit later on, but to start, as we're noticing, for ourselves, and I'm sure you can relate even for yourself in your journey, this suppression of our sexuality and sort of the unhealthy attributes that are in relation to one another as men, as women. What is it that you're noticing for yourself in patterns that you've had to work through, and maybe in the patterns of others?
That's really big. There's a lot there. In myself, over the years, very, very suppressed. My sexuality is big. My sexuality and my sex and my sexualness, that whole bubble it's huge. I can remember being a little girl, a young girl, and masturbating, and it felt amazing. It was exciting, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, this feels so good. And I was never caught, and I was never told by a parent that it was wrong, but I knew it was wrong, and so I hid it. And I think that was one of I bring up this memory because I think that was the very first memory I've ever had of suppressing my sex and I want to call it sexualness, because there's the energy of sex, and then there's the energy of sexual. Sexualness has like all these different energies in it. It's like, I use it as like an umbrella term. So I have other memories like that. You know, growing up, I was a very sexual child, and I enjoyed playing with my friends and having these experiences. And I didn't know where the penis went, and I didn't know what sex was, but we were just having fun, touching each other's bodies and exploring, but all the time hiding it because we knew that we had to hide it. We'd never been told we had to, but we knew we had to. Um, then hitting puberty, I guess, was another big marker for me because I was feeling all these very, like, even more sexual stirrings in my body and in my being, you know, being a young girl, and I could feel the excitement of something. I felt it was so exciting. But again, I hid it. I hid it. I didn't have a woman, a role model in my life to kind of initiate me into these energies and to celebrate that with me. I didn't have a woman to celebrate all that stuff with. I was I was raised by a man. And so I hid it all. And so all these little things that happened to me, you know, all these little markers throughout my life, I learned to suppress it. Yeah, but as suppress it, but at the same time, I had that knowing that I was this really over the top, really big, really expansive, really powerful sexual being. And I knew that there was more to it. I knew that I knew that, like, as an adult, you know, I was married for 21 years, and I knew that this, for example, the sex that we were having, there was just more. I knew that there was something more out there, but I didn't know what that more was. And so that started me on my journey path of finding out what that more was. What is this more that I know that I am, but that I don't know what I am, but that I feel like I am?
Hmm, amazing. Okay, so how has the process been for you to liberate yourself and to begin to free yourself to explore and to experience your deeper, greater desires?
It's been all over the place. it's looked it's looked in the physical very in the physical it would appear very chaotic, like nonsensical, no order whatsoever. And yet, when I am able to look back to where I am now, from where I am now to like back years, I can see the brilliance of it. I can see the whole thing unfolding, and it wasn't a linear process. And a lot of humans expect we expect this to be a linear thing. And so when something happens that doesn't make sense, we're just like, we're thrown for a loop and we think that we're doing it wrong, or, you know, all the things that we think. And so my process was very much not linear. I tried to make it very linear, but it didn't work. So it's been all over the place, and I've had a lot of experiences, but what really started to change and bring it all together and bring me more experiences so that I could have these awarenesses of who I am and who I am as a sexual being, and all that, is I was studying an energy modality called access consciousness. And in it, you ask questions, and then you don't search for the answers. You just ask questions and you wait kind of for you wait for the awarenesses to come, or you don't wait. They come, right? And so one of the biggest questions I started asking myself whenever it felt light to ask it was, what is my sexual reality? And at the time, I had no idea. I was married and having sex. I was having sex, but it wasn't fulfilling me with my husband. And I could feel these energies wanting to come through me when we were having sex, but I couldn't let them out. And everything, I was so suppressed, right? And so as soon as I started asking this question, what is my sexual reality? I was brought these, I was taken, I was guided down this path to where I am right now. And I see now, looking back, that that path had to do with me undefining everything I knew about myself to be true, about my sex, about my body, about my relationships, about my sexuality, about my sensualness, all of that. I had to undefine all that because, like, due to our programming, right? Like our cultural programming and tribal consciousness and our programming from our mother and our programming from our father, and there's probably more programming, all of it. Because of that, we have this, we've defined ourselves. We've defined what our sex is, taken on all these points of views, all these labels, all these definitions. We've defined what our sex is, defined what our sexuality is, defined what our relationships is, all of that, right? And so I was suddenly, from asking that question, and I didn't know what my sexual reality was. I had no idea. Like, I had no idea what that wanted to look like. I had no idea what I wanted it to feel like, even. I just knew I could feel it in my body. I could feel the possibilities of what that sexual reality was. And it was like energy shooting up and wanting to explode out of my head. That was the energy. But what is that going to look like? I had no idea. So it's brought all these experiences through asking certain questions around that basically challenged my points of views, challenged all these definitions and labels that I had placed on myself about what my sex was, who I wanted to have sex with, how I wanted to have sex, all these things. And so all throughout all these experiences, I was actually able to undefine my sex to the point where today it can look like anything. It's anything. And I've cleared all the probably not all. There's always more to clear, right? But I've cleared a lot of the definitions and the labels around what all that is and what to expect, in our relations with the opposite sex or with the same sex. That too, that's something that I had to clear too, is being willing to, even though I don't label myself as a lesbian or bisexual or any of that, being able to be an allowance of, if the energy was leading me towards having sexual relationships or sexual relations with a woman, could I go there? And I that did come up at one point. And I was able, I didn't have to go there. I actually didn't have to go there physically. I was able to be like, yeah, I could go there. Definitely I could go there. It's just a different body, right? With different parts. So yeah, things like that. Lots of undefining.
Okay. So I guess the next question would have to relate to, what is it, you would suggest to somebody who might feel suppressed or in contraction? Because I can see even for myself that there are times and moments where I can be in relation to another and feel quite contracted. And then, of course, not being able to fully experience that pleasure, that joy, or even that love in connection to another person. And then therefore, afterwards, maybe even regret not being able to be there fully present to experience it all. And so then it creates like this cycle of suppression and guilt and shame that we're essentially trying to free ourselves of more and more through this experience of healing through intimacy, through connection, through physical touch, and coming to recognize that it's natural, it's playful, it's innocent, and all of this goodness. So what would you recommend to somebody who is still recognizing that they have shut down sexually to their pleasure, to their joy. Is there anything in particular you would say?
Yeah, and these recommendations, we have to remind everyone, these recommendations are not based on any certifications, any training. I'm not a sexologist, none of that. All experience, life experience. Where to start? To follow your turn on. And when I say turn on, I mean energy, to follow the energy. So when I follow my turn on, it's not always, I'm not defining that turn on as a sexual turn on, as like my body is sexually aroused and I'm gonna just follow that turn on, because we all know that that can lead us to having some experiences that afterwards we're like, that wasn't quite like, that didn't, I don't feel rejuvenated and energized and like all lit up. Like we want to feel all lit up and all that amazing stuff after we have these sexual experiences, right? So not that, it's not necessarily that kind of turn on. It's like the turn on that lights your body up and your being up, and your body's like, yes, I want to play with that body. I want to roll around with that body and like puppy stew. And yes, I want that penis in my vagina, but not in a just in a really expansive way. Like you're just lit up and your being is lit up, right? So that's the turn on that I'm talking about. I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this for a few years without realizing that I was doing it. And then recently I've been doing it a lot more consciously, I guess, following the turn on of that energy. And it never leads me wrong. It always leads me to having these experiences that challenge me. And sometimes it's not an experience that you would necessarily label as good or pleasurable. It might be an experience where you needed to clear some matter, like where you need to clear some points of view, some charged points of views in that area, right? So that we can actually fully embody the totality of our sexualness. Because if we, what do I want to say? The suppression thing. If we can't be an allowance of all these things that we are in, of all these energies, because sexualness is everything. Sexualness as an umbrella term is everything. Like, so I consider sexualness to be my sex, my sexuality, my sensualness, my healing, my nurturing, like all those energies, right? And there's kind of everything in there. And so if we're not willing to be the totality, our sexualness in its totality, we're suppressing ourselves. We're not only suppressing our sex, but we're suppressing our sexuality, our sensuality, our relationships, because that goes out into our relationships. I may need you to bring me back here, James.
I think you've done really amazingly well to be able to encompass and encapsulate everything here in what we can do, like to just free ourselves, to liberate ourselves, and to understand that sex isn't just an act, it is everything essentially, and there's no rigidity between the act of sex and not. It's really a part of life. And I see like the label of sex, with the big X, has been demonized really. And so just to acknowledge this and recognize that it's not a sin, that it is the greatest gift that we have here on earth as humans, in this ability to unify and connect with somebody in such a sacred way, and also to have the potential to co-create life together through that act, is so powerful. And as we see, we've been suppressed, and this perception has been distorted in so many ways through the media and how it's portrayed, to the point where our parents aren't even comfortable to speak with us when we're growing up and going through puberty, like you said. So things have been so distorted, and really want to thank you for taking the time to share here today with us what you've been learning. And I know that there's so many other things that we could talk about and discuss, and maybe in time we'll be able to do that more and more. But here and now, just to hear from you this wisdom and insights through your experience is really powerful and really beautiful. And I'm sure helping all of us to do the same on this path that I know for you, it's taken a lot of courage, a lot of strength to honor, to explore, and to continuously learn and grow through each and every experience, as I know that you are. So thank you so much for taking this time. And if there's any last words that you want to share here, I'd encourage you, please do with us.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So may we continue to bring light into this parts of ourselves, to the depth of our being, and our ability to bring healing and love into the world and into our bodies, into our souls. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
We'll talk to you soon.